Hi there, history fans. So today we have a patron suggestion, and the video is called Poland in World War II, Armies in Exile. I covered already a bunch of videos regarding Poland, and fun fact, the Poles invaded my channel in the last week or so, and they're now I think in the first or the second place of, like the countries that mostly watch my videos. So welcome to everybody from Poland. Okay, this is a video from History House Productions. I already covered one video of them, and it's a funny channel, so I'm interested how they're going to do it. As always, the link to the original video is in the description below. Give them a view and a like if you want to be a patron member. The link is also in the description below. So let's jump in the video.
Are you all ready for our trip to Poland? You bet.
Always.
Please let this be a normal field trip.
Only World War II.
After Poland regained its independence following the First World War, it immediately found itself in a very difficult situation. Czechoslovakia thought that their border was dumb, Germany was just salty and poor for the time being, and the Soviet Union was busy not eating. Luckily, Poland finagled themselves a deal with the French and British, which became especially necessary after some raving Austrian lunatics started getting popular. Now, France and Britain actually weren't too worried about this guy. They were just like, well, politics sometimes just brings out the worst in people, but in the end, it's sometimes better just cut that out, man. It's not funny anymore. Peacefully knowing that.
Where are you, Britain? Where are you, France?
I'm gonna invade Poland, guys. I'm sorry, you're what now? Poland had actually anticipated a German invasion for quite a while, so most of the Polish Navy was sent to Britain before the war, and the Air Force was relocated to secret airstrips in the woods. However, Germany was...
Yeah, although France and Britain were on paper allied with Poland, and they wanted, they supported Polish neutrality and so on, independence and so on. But when it came to that point, when it came to the time to act, they were like, nope, nope, nope.
Also being a busy little bee and used all this downtime to make some allies of their own. So, you won't attack us if we don't attack you, right? Absolutely. Why are you saying everything in air quotes? It kind of makes everything you say sound disingenuous and just sort of makes me wonder. Oh, gotta go. Hey,
so the Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact,
together, right?
Non-aggression pact.
Yeah, I guess. Alright, rad. See you later, skaters. Kind of a weird guy. I think we'll be fine. When Germany meandered across the Polish border on the morning of September 1st, 1939, Poland had only been able to mobilize half of its army, of which only around 50% were in their combat positions. This was due to British and French pressure to delay mobilization so that they could talk some sense into Hitler. By September 10th, the
politics of appeasement to Hitler, I think I can see, maybe one of the main guys that pushed for the policy of appeasement was the British Prime Minister Chamberlain, and he won't ever, in history, he will be always the bad guy. Although his sense was, if there is a war with Hitler, the Soviet Union would also intervene, so there would be a conflict between Germany and the Soviet Union, and eventually the Soviet Union will push into Central Europe and spread communism in Central Europe. So there is a little bit of sense to that, but nobody, when we look from today, nobody, ever, I think, is going to mark Chamberlain in a positive way. But yeah.
Polish army had lost most of their original defensive positions to the Germans, and by the 14th, Warsaw was completely boned. However, contrary to popular belief, Poland wasn't just like, well, life goes on, I guess. Oh my gosh, wow, that's so ironic. They staged several counteroffensives and mounted a heroic defense. In fact, the Polish plan was never to beat Germany, but simply to stall them for 2 weeks before France invaded the almost totally undefended western border of Germany.
Siegfried-Linie.
Hey dude, are you gonna launch that attack anytime soon?
No.
Things are pretty rough over here. Yeah, I don't know. The border seems really well defended over here. Yeah, I'd better not. To add insult...
Yeah, you know, like, the French, after the First World War, they occupied Alsace-Lorraine, but... and made a demilitarized zone, but eventually, when the Germans sent in their troops into Alsace-Lorraine, they, you know, like, rebuilt all the old bunkers and so on, so it was a line that you couldn't break. And on the French side, it was the same, and that's why they attacked from through Belgium and the Benelux states.
To injury, Romania retracted its military alliance with Poland under German pressure, and the Soviet Union invaded eastern Poland on September 17th, which, according to recent research, they wouldn't have done if France had attacked Germany. Once the Soviets invaded from the east, Poland pretty much knew they were screwed, so they dipped to Romania with the nation's gold reserves and the remnants of the Polish army and escaped to France. By May of 1940, the Polish army in France numbered 84,500 men. However, relations between the two countries were strained, as many Poles saw the French army as unorganized and ill-disciplined. Adding to this tension, the Polish army in France was given second-rate equipment, ramshackle housing, and was repeatedly dismissed from giving the French advice on how to combat the Germans. The first Polish unit to see combat from this army was the...
To play devil's advocate, I think, you know, like, it's kind of logical that you're going to arm your people or your army with the best equipment and so on. So I kind of understand that they gave them, you know, like, second-hand equipment or so on. But with not taking their advice, although they fought already against the Germans, is kind of... France! Listen to Polish soldiers.
On how to combat the Germans. The first Polish unit to see combat from this army was the Polish Independent Highland Brigade, which was deployed to Norway and participated alongside the Polish Navy in the attack on Narvik.
Yeah.
The rest of the army
but
just
it was
hung out
inside
in
of the
France,
British
but soon found
army.
themselves fighting once more as the Germans swung around the Maginot Line in May of 1940. Most Polish divisions served as rear guards and allowed larger French forces to retreat. The Poles fought bravely till the end, which wasn't very long because France surrendered. Spent a long time on that one. Polish troops evacuated to Britain any way they could, but only a fraction of the men found their way to the island after the fall of France. However, what remained of the Polish army was joined by thousands of other Poles who had escaped the fiasco of 1939, forming the Polish First Corps. Additionally, 8,400 pilots and ground crew of the Polish Air Force found themselves in the UK after the Battle of France, and would soon make invaluable contributions to the upcoming Battle of Britain.
Yeah, their part in the Battle of Britain and their part in the Royal Air Force was pretty darn good. Like, the best pilots inside of the Royal Air Force were actually Polish soldiers, and there was actually also a competition or some sort of, like, something like that, and the first 3 places were taken by Polish, or I think the first 5 places were taken by Polish pilots. So they were pretty darn good.
Germany set their sights on the British Isles as the logical next location for them to peacefully occupy. In order to pave the way for the invasion of Britain, Germany started dropping some bombs here and there in their spare time. To counter this, the Royal Air Force could only muster a few hundred pilots, so they were quite pleased to receive the veteran Polish flyers. These Polish pilots would soon distinguish themselves, and by the end of the battle had downed over 200 German planes with a 10-to-1 kill-to-death ratio. Another fun fact is that when the RAF held a gunnery competition for its fighter pilots, Polish airmen passed with flying colors and placed first, second, and third. Flashing back to when Poland fell in 1939, a couple thousand Poles had actually found themselves with...
Yeah, but with the Battle of Britain, the Germans lost so much on their Luftwaffe, so planes and resources and so on, that they couldn't rebuild the German Luftwaffe again. So it was a big, I wouldn't say unnecessary, but a big intervention where they lost so much. It wasn't efficient. It wasn't efficient.
Drawn to Syria,
For the German
which
side.
at the time was a French colony, and began forming the Polish Independent Carpathian Rifle Brigade, proving that since their own language isn't hard enough, they have to make all their English translations equally as tedious. But don't worry, they have a nice Polish acronym, SPKSK. When the French surrendered to the Germans in 1940,
With, like the Croatian island, Krk. Krk. I love Slavic languages.
colonial officials in Syria ordered SPKSK to turn themselves
SPKSK.
in, but they just gave the
I never
French the
heard
middle
about them.
finger and took all their stuff to Palestine, another oddly peaceful place. From there, these certified bad boys were deployed to Libya in 1941 and fought in the Battle of Tobruk, among many other engagements.
Werbung.
EVE Online is a vast...
I changed my
Come
mind.
to us boldly, to your brothers, to the Red Army. Here, you will be cared for. Here, you will be respected. Comrade, these guys just surrendered. Oh. Welcome, new comrades.
Didn't
right this
expect
way.
that.
We're gonna shoot them, right? Without a doubt. Actually, Gulag. Yeah, that'd probably be best. However, when Germany invaded the Soviet Union in 1941, Stalin allowed for the creation of another Polish army in modern-day Uzbekistan under the command of Władysław Anders.
Yeah, the Anders
with
army.
just the food in their bellies and
If you ever go to Poland, you need to eat pierogi. Pierogi are the best. I mean, it's not complicated to do them yourself. Look up the recipe and eat them. But especially if you go, I mean, I made them already, I don't know, 10 times in the last, few months. But if you go to Poland and they make it, I don't know what they do with the pierogi, but it always is better to eat. It's always more delicious than I make them.
the Adidas tracksuits on their back. Thousands of hopeful Slavs started their trek south. So many Poles were released, however, that they caused a labor shortage in the gulags, and the Soviets started nabbing them again.
Oh, you almost had it. You gotta be quicker than that.
However, many made it, and by 1942, Anders' army numbered 75,000 soldiers and 40,000
Yeah.
civilians. Interestingly, though, there was an unexplained shortage of officers. I wonder what could have happened to them.
Katyan. Yeah, Katyan. Here, Katyan.
Anywho, the Soviet Union
The Katyan massacre. Katyan is a forest in today's western part of Russia near the Belarusian border. But I think approximately 20 or 22,000 Polish officers, intellectuals, and so on were killed there. And that's why there is so shortage of the officer corps. An interesting thing, there was an Armia Ludowa, so a resistance army inside of Poland, which was controlled from the Soviet part. But as you saw, there was also the Anders army, which was grouped in the Soviet Union and then sent out, and eventually they went also in the Battle of Monte Cassino and so on.
was kind of a wacky host, so Anders decided to move his 115,000 person entourage to British-controlled Iran, and from there linked up with Spsk in Palestine. Together, they formed the Polish Second Corps. As this was happening, a lad
Spisk in the chat. Or not the chat, the comment section.
named Zygmunt Berlin, who I will note had been convicted of embezzling funds and kicked out of the Polish army, decided that the Soviets weren't that bad and started raising another army of POWs as soon as Anders' army left. This force, known as Berlin's army, would number over 200,000 men by the end of the war and suffered mad casualties in
I didn't know
Bush
that.
West. The newly formed
It's interesting, like a lot of people, when they talk about the Soviet Union, they think about, like the Soviets didn't care about nationalities, ethnicities, they, you know, like only workers and so on. But if you look at the different brigades and armies that were formed inside of the Soviet Union and that were, you know, like on the front lines, sent always to the front lines first, those brigades were mostly made out of Poles, Ukrainians, Belarusians, and so on. And then, okay, there were also Russians inside of those brigades, but they were mostly, you know, like Ukrainian and so on. It's interesting. It's interesting. But yeah.
Second Corps would take part in the Allied invasion of Italy in 1943, and it was actually Polish soldiers who captured Monte Cassino in 1944 with great loss of life. Interestingly, the Second Corps replaced these losses with captured German soldiers, thousands of which were conscripted Poles. By the time Anders' forces had reached northern Italy, though, attention shifted to Normandy, where the...
Yeah, that wasn't actually a uncommon thing for the Germans to recruit people from the lands that they occupied, and most of the Eastern European men that were conscripted inside of the German army were in so-called Ostbrigaden, Ostbrigade or East Brigades, and so on, and they were also stationed in Italy, in Normandy, and so on. So a lot of Poles were in the so-called Ostbrigades. So,
though, attention shifted to Normandy, where the Allies had landed in 1944, much to the surprise of the Germans. Oh boy, I did not see that coming. No Polish ground forces were present at D-Day, although several Polish ships and many Polish aircraft supported the landing. But in July, the Polish 1st Armored Division from the 1st Corps was landed in France and began playing an important role in operations such as the Fillet Pocket and the liberation of the Netherlands. Speaking
bicycle.
Of which... Back in 1941, Colonel Stanisław Sosabowski of the Polish 1st Corps began forming an independent Polish parachute brigade with the purpose of eventually jumping into Poland to liberate the country. However, as Germany began to collapse and the Red Army moved into Poland, it became clear that the Poles probably wouldn't have the chance to liberate their country. Hence, they volunteered to participate in Operation Market Garden. Now, as we all know, the operation went swimmingly and there were absolutely no miscalculations or failures of any kind. So, you would be surprised to learn that the Polish brigade suffered heavy casualties and was ultimately scapegoated by Montgomery as the reason for the operation's failure. I actually visited the town that the Poles dropped into, and it's really cool. The locals built a monument and stuff. It's dope. Anyway... I feel like I'm forgetting something.
I need to go to that village in the Netherlands. Maybe I make a project video. But after all the crazy thing is away, what's happening right now in Europe and throughout the world, but...
And I'm back. So I just wanted to let you know that there's some other World War II videos that also came out today on the Armchair Historian, House of History, and Voices of the Past. So I'd recommend you go check those out. They're all dope channels. Solid 87.3 out of 10. Links will be up right now.
I approve. I approve all of those channels. And of course, History House Productions. Okay. I hope that you enjoyed it. As always, the link to the original video is in the description below. Give them a view and a like. If you want to be a patron, the link is also in the description below. If you just want to be part of the community, just hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. And yeah, until the next time, see ya.